the show is over. Shoigu finally acknowledged the defeat of Russians across Dnipro river in Kherson region, and Russians also withdrew all of its ships from the Black Sea. And at the same time, the army looks like completely gave up on Vuhledar in the east. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's get straight to the point and talk about some ridiculous Russian propaganda. Oh! Today, we have actual Russian propaganda. They pretty much started talking on federal channels about those Russians who escaped the war and started living in other countries, such as, for example, me. And so what they basically say is that those people already completely do not have money to survive abroad, and the vast majority of them, they have to pretty much become homeless. They go from the trash can to a trash can, they look for something to eat inside trash, they pretty much drink rainwater, and there is nothing they cannot do because they have no money, they cannot return back. And Russian propaganda only humiliates them even more for their poor decisions in the past. Oh, and by the way, guys, I think my neighbor just left, so just give me 2 minutes, I'm gonna go really quick to check, because I think he had a pizza yesterday, so there might be some cheese left inside the pizza box. Just give me a second. Well, guys, the moment of truth. No luck today, no cheese inside pizza box, so unfortunately I have to not have dinner today. Well, that's the harsh reality. And now I have a proposal to you, guys. If you are not dependent on your neighbor's trash to survive, can you please simply like this video and subscribe to my channel? I want to literally battle Russian propaganda with pure statistics. You can also follow me on Instagram to see how I live outside of YouTube. The link is down below. But okay, obviously now let's get serious and let me give you a brief update from the east and talk about Russians completely giving up on Vuhledar, and then we'll finalize everything in the south with Shoigu finally acknowledging the truth. But first of all, let's refer to the report by the British intelligence report, and they basically claim that in the last 2 days alone, at least 50 Russian-Iranian Shahed drones were launched against Kiev. Majority of them, if not all of them, were intercepted by Ukrainians, and reportedly it is not to destroy an energy infrastructure of Ukraine just yet. Russians most likely are just trying to exhaust the Ukrainian air defense system and also to try and find some vulnerabilities, once again, before the upcoming winter. Then we have a video from already familiar Azov battalion, also operating in the east of Ukraine, and this right here we can see them destroying relatively big concentrations of Russians infantry, and they're not just doing it once. Throughout the video there is a compilation of such multiple attacks. Next we refer to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, and it claims that Russians continue their offensive along Kupiansk-Svatove-Kreminna front line with no significant success so far. But if we go to the south of Kreminna, we can see that actually Ukrainians were able to capture an extremely small part of land. There is a slow progress, but there is progress nonetheless. And then, as you go closer to Bakhmut, to the south of this city in Odradivka, Ukrainians were able to reportedly destroy a relatively big mortar firing position of Russians. And speaking about Bakhmut, right here is another video from the close proximity to this city, where Ukrainians were able to very quietly advance closer to the sleeping Russian positions, and they started eliminating them first with grenades, and then there was a pretty intense sniper fire. The full video, or the full version of this video, obviously will never be allowed on YouTube, but if you want to see it all, it will be available on my Patreon, link is down below. But unfortunately, overall, in the last 24 hours, Russians also started to push to the south of Bakhmut, and they were able to recapture some land to the southeast of Andriivka, as you can see from this map. Our next stop brings us potentially to the most intense area in the entire east of Ukraine, Avdiivka, and as you can see from this first video, Russians continue to use almost pretty much illegal weapons which are banned by the Geneva Convention. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? Some people say this is a white phosphorus, some people others say that this is an incendiary munition. And Ukrainians in the meantime continue to effectively use the cluster munition against the position of Russians also around Avdiivka area. And closer to the end of Tuesday, Russian soldiers had a relatively peaceful and relaxing concert in Donetsk region, when suddenly an attack allegedly by Ukrainian HIMARS came to this place, eliminating reportedly up to 25 Russians. And ultimately, potentially the most crucial event of the last several days from the east is that it looks like that Russians gave up completely on their offensive against Vuhledar, because as you can see from this map, these red arrows, which pretty much show the direction of Russian attacks, they completely disappeared from Vuhledar front line, which allows us to assume that yes, most likely Russians are still present in this area, but they stopped any offensive attempts. And this has not been resumed by then for the last several days. Russians potentially gave up on Vuhledar, potentially pursuing some other directions, such as, for example, Avdiivka. And so yes, now as promised, let me give you a similar quick update from the south of Ukraine, where Russians withdrew all of its Black Sea Navy vessels from this area. And then we'll talk about Shoigu finally acknowledging the truth. But first of all, as you can see from this picture, the local residents of Yevpatoria reported some very loud noises coming from the Black Sea direction. Russians obviously were silent about what exactly happened. At the same time, even more interesting video came to us from another coast of Crimean Peninsula, closer to Crimean Bridge, also commonly known as the Kerch Bridge. And as you can see, a representative of Ukrainian Defense Intelligence is pretty much looking at the Crimean Bridge with absolutely no Russians surrounding him. There are no Russian soldiers, no Russian equipment, no Russian air defense systems, nothing. The bridge is right in front of him, almost completely unprotected. So this might be a very first hint to us that Ukrainians are planning something. You already know what it means. And speaking just in general about the Black Sea area, looks like that Russians finally realized its mistakes, that they decided to still keep some of their vessels after Ukraine started to target and destroy them. And reportedly, at the moment of recording this video, there is not a single missile-carrying vessel of the Russian Black Sea Navy located in this area. But wait a second, you know what Russians said to this? They basically said they had to relocate all their ships because of the upcoming storm, not because of Ukrainians are actively destroying them. Well, doesn't matter who is right, who is wrong, the main thing is that at least for now, there are no Russian ships in the Black Sea. But unfortunately, Russians continued to attack civilian, primarily infrastructure in Kherson region, such as, for example, right here you can see photos from Bereslav, and Russians used airplanes to attack this civilian city. They, as you remember from my previous video, majority of Russian artillery systems and mortars on the left side of Dnipro river are already pushed further away, so most of them they can no longer reach the right side of Kherson region. That is why Russians now started to use the fighter jets to do exactly the same. And besides that, since there is a slowdown in Zaporozhye region for now at least, Russians continue to intensely place mines along the point of the contact. And as you can see from this video, it shows you how intense these minefields can be. Russians put them in the chessboard order, and the distance between each mine reportedly is even less than 1 meter. And while Russians are primarily concentrated on total defense and not letting Ukrainians advance, Ukrainians still do exactly the opposite. They do attack Russian positions, and most of the time they do it quite successfully. Right here, for example, is the 6+ minutes of the most recent tank raid by Ukrainians, which in the end leaves Ukrainians to be victorious. The full version is also available on my Patreon. If you want, just go ahead and please check it yourself. You can also receive additional benefits such as fully uncensored episodes of The Russian Dude. And this is the best way to support the channel, starting only as little as $4 per month. There is 1 week of free trial for you to see if you like it or not, and the link is down below. Thank you guys so much. And ultimately we have another extremely interesting video, allegedly from the left side of Kherson region. The location is not yet 100% confirmed, but the majority of people assume that this is the Russian occupied side of Kherson region. And basically what we are witnessing is Ukrainians using HIMARS to attack the concentration of Russian forces and their military positions and small bases. All the events of the pretty much previous last couple of weeks already confirm, and both Ukrainians and the Western military experts and even some Russian military bloggers, they acknowledge that Russians are losing in Kherson region and Ukrainians are able to establish successfully the bridgeheads over the Dnipro river, until recently, where finally Sergei Shoigu acknowledged exactly the same. He did not say it in direct sentence, saying that yes, Russians are losing on the left side of Kherson. He said it in the manner which is suitable for the Ministry of Defense of Russia in their propagandistic matter. Basically what he said is that Russians are completely victorious on the left side of Kherson. Every single attack by Ukrainians was repelled. There is not a single bridgehead, there is not a single Ukrainian soldier present on the left side of Kherson, and you already know what it means. Whenever Shoigu says something, exactly the opposite is true. So, by making these contradictory statements, Shoigu pretty much indirectly confirmed that, yes, Russians lost the first line of defense across the Dnipro. He then also continued with his absolutely ridiculous statistics, saying that in less than a month in this Dnipro direction, Ukrainians lost approximately 13,700 soldiers. Yes, just across Dnipro. When we were talking about just several hundreds crossing, Shoigu somehow eliminated almost 14,000. He also mentioned that Ukrainians lost 1,800 pieces of military equipment. I mean, yes, in less than a month, in just one small direction. And then he said that the supplies of the Russian forces of their military equipment increased by 16 times in 1 month. I mean, he absolutely lives in the separate, completely different world from the rest of us, guys, it looks like, because these numbers he's getting is just like absolutely from nowhere. But so yes, the good news is that as soon as Shoigu acknowledges the total defeat of Ukrainians and absolutely victorious Russians, it actually means good news. It means that Ukrainians are winning. And this is pretty good. And well, there you have it. Guys, if you do like this style of daily updates, can you please subscribe to my channel? It only takes 1 click. Thank you so much my Patreons for your support, and see you tomorrow.